Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We're fortunate to interview successful business owners who built good businesses to learn from them their story. Every business has a story. We're fortunate today to have with us Ruben Lopez, who built Computer Labs. Mr. Lopez, thank you for your time and sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much, Lomero. I appreciate being here, and I thank you for your opportunity.
Well, thank you. Well, tell me, what is Computer Labs?
Well, Computer Labs has evolved into quite a few things now. We do testing. In fact, we are a test proctoring service for over 25 companies. We test from IT certifications to teacher certifications and even government agencies like Homeland Security, FBI, and so forth and so on. So we do a lot of testing.
What kinds of tests?
Well, basically they're industry standard test. TSA entry applicants, for instance, would test at our facility. Teachers now, because of the new rules, now have to be certified in their area of study, and they have to be certified every 3 years. So we offer those services there at our center as well. We also are a training company, and basically we focus on training military and military contractors in IT certifications and security certifications. So we do that. We also have a division which we just started, which is SEO, Search Engine Optimization. And that allows a company, small, mid-sized business, to compete in local markets by creating their presence on the internet, not only on search engines, but also on social media. And so we handle their marketing approach on the internet.
So you do a service as well?
Oh, yes.
As well as the training?
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Where are you located?
We're located at number 3 Butterfield Trail, so we're directly across the street from Stout Gym on Fort Bliss, if you're familiar with Fort Bliss. We're right now right in the middle of town. In fact, yeah, it's a prime location because we have the loop that has just recently been built, and it's within a couple of blocks from us. We're also half a mile away from Sergeant Major's Academy, and of course, as you know, Fort Bliss across the street, and about a mile and a half from I-10. So we can get anywhere in the city of El Paso from our location within 7 minutes or less.
Wow, so you're between the airport and Biggs Field.
Yes.
So
yes.
How old is your company?
Well, you know what, Computer Labs first evolved almost 25 years ago, okay? And in fact, started out as executive system control. We incorporated in 1993, I do believe, and became Computer Labs Incorporated. So we've been around for a while.
So how big is Computer Labs?
How big is Computer Labs? Well, that's pretty relative. You know, we have, like I've mentioned before, we've evolved and we've grown. Well, Computer Labs, as far as how we've evolved and what we do, I think we're pretty big. But, you know, we are a small business, and we've gone the gambit. I at one time had over 4 campuses spread out, not only in the city, but also throughout New Mexico and right outside of Texas, Favens as well. So we've grown to that size. Since then, we are now downsized, if you will, so that we can meet the needs in our target markets that we're focusing on.
Why did you start the business?
Why did I start the business? Well, I think I may have shared this story with you earlier. I was actually working as a systems analyst for a company in town, company by the name of Gail Darling. You may have remembered Gail
Yes,
Darling
I remember.
Temp Services. And well, I worked for her for quite a few years as her systems analyst, and she encouraged me one day to put my application in with Rotary International and become part of this group study exchange program, which I eventually did and got picked to go to Nigeria, Africa. And once I went to Nigeria, Africa, and I saw that way of life, and I saw humanity at its best, and I saw humanity at its worst. And what I saw was the deciding factor was education and knowledge. And these kids were just chomping at the bits to learn anything and everything. No formal education out there, especially for poor. And so we were out there. I was out there to teach computer technology at a couple of the universities out there, Abu Bella University, one of them. And at night, I got together with a couple of my colleagues, and we would sneak out, so to speak, and we would go to these little villages, and we would teach and train kids on the basics of mathematics and reading and writing. And it was an incredible experience for me, having to teach by drawing on the dirt, because materials were hard to come by. We had to actually teach at night, and we had to have the curtains drawn because you didn't want to attract attention, because it was actually illegal to teach kids, girls in particular, in that country, in that surrounding. So anyhow, long story short, came back to United States and a changed person, and said, I want to do something different with my life. So I walked in to my boss, Gail Darling, and said, you gave me the most incredible experience of my life, but I thank you for that, but I have to now quit, and I have to go and do my own thing, because I have to make a difference. I have to do something. And so I did. And so I left, and without a plan, without a clear direction, but I knew in my heart I had to do something, and I wanted to teach, I wanted to train, I wanted to give my experience, and started the company, Executive System Control, and started training in shelter or community center services environments and stuff. And my very first year, I think I made only $500, and then and realized, what am I doing with my life? Oh my goodness! But picked up training contracts, and eventually started training at Providence Memorial Hospital, and training their staff and also their community outreach programs back then.
Fascinating.
And started off from there.
Wow. So how long were you in Africa?
It seemed like a long time, but it was really probably no more than 5 months. But it was enough time.
Really changed your life.
Oh, absolutely. Night and day.
Did you already finished college before that?
Yes. I had graduated from the University of Texas at El Paso.
In what field?
Business management with a minor in computer information systems.
So you're already into computers?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I at a very young age, I was into computer systems. Just a funny story about that. My brother and I were out playing around area. In fact, we're Executive Center, computer, I guess it was Computer Land used to be, or what have you.
Computer
back
Land,
then.
yes.
Yeah, with the gentleman's name that used to own that. I can't remember his name right now. We were just talking about him the other day.
Well, Larry Peterson.
Larry Peterson was one of the founders of that place. But anyhow, I was 11. My brother was a little older. I think he was 15, what have you. And my brother was an electronics genius. And we found this busted computer in the trash can. And he took it home, and he fiddled with it as best he could and couldn't get it to work. Found the manual for this TRS-80, back then is what it was called,
Wow.
from Tandy. Called the Tandy engineer, and the Tandy engineer just was so tickled by this kid calling and saying, hey, I'd like to fix this computer, that he sent him diagrams and print boards and what have you. My father actually cut out a wood frame for the computer case itself, and using an impedance lead to connect to the TV, on black and white TV that we actually had a running computer system. So my brother built this computer system, and after he got it working, finished it and walked away. And that's where I came in. I said, well, I'm going to learn how to make this computer work. And so at 11, I started programming and
Really?
started learning how to do C Basic back then.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
Actually, it was QBasic. Central El Paso, Kansas Street, by Cathedral High School.
In schools? What schools you go to?
El Paso High School, Lamar Elementary. And loved every minute of it.
Wow.
Loved the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, it was the kind of neighborhood everybody just got along with each other, and the neighbors looked out for each other. Us kids by the 10s and 20s would be running around playing baseball, basketball, what have you, and every parent would have this phone, connection somehow, so that they knew where we were at and what we were doing at all times. So,
how many brothers and sisters?
I have 3 brothers: David, Oscar, and Danny, and my sister Margie.
What did they do?
Well, my brother David works for Texas Tech Security. He's been in law enforcement his whole life and done a tremendous job with that. My sister Margie, who's the second oldest, she is working at Denver, Colorado, with the workforce development organization out there, in helping people fulfill their education and needs. My brother Danny runs he is the area director manager for a company called ECC, which does logistics for cement transportation allocations and stuff of that nature. So, yeah. And then my brother Oscar is an instructor at Excel Learning Center, and he's always getting accolades of being the instructor of the year and stuff. And yeah, real good. So.
And your dad, what did your father do?
My father worked at Fair Manufacturing, and he was a machinist. In my eyes, he was a genius. He could fix anything, and he could make anything.
Wow.
So, he had that knack of just taking an idea and materializing it into a working product. In fact, he, along with other gentlemen from Fair Manufacturing, has his names on over 5 patents.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And what did you learn from your father?
Wow. What did I learn from my father? Work ethic, to stick with it until you see it through, and make sure it's done right.
Wow.
Ethics, do what you say what you do. Yeah. Of course, my mom also instilled, ethics and love thy neighbor and being.
Was your mom a housewife?
Oh yes. Well, you know what? For a part of our lives, she was, until I guess me being the youngest, until I moved on from elementary into high school. Then, because back then Lamar went up to 8th grade, and then you went to Paso High School in freshman year, or 8th. No, actually. Lamar went to 7th grade, and then 8th grade year, El Paso. Anyhow, then she became a librarian at Jefferson High School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so she did that for a few years there.
And you learned different things from your mother.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know what? My mom has such strength, spiritual strength. I mean, you know, lovable. You see this woman. She's, you know, gosh, I don't know if I should say this on the air, but you know, she's about, let's say, you know, 5 something, you know, almost close to 4 feet. But a tiny little thing, lovable, but just so much love, and the neighborhood all knows her for that because she's just a very caring, giving individual, and we got that from her. We learned to give to the community, to give of ourselves.
You still have your parents with you?
My father passed away in 1996, and in fact, right. Right in the inception of the startings of the company and seeing it evolving. My mom, she's still going.
That's fantastic.
She's still going.
That's fantastic. Congrats.
Thanks.
So you come out of high school. What did you do? What options did you have
In high school?
when you finished high school?
Wow. You know, options were pretty limited. I mean, yes, I wanted to go to college, but it was tough. It was, you know, we had 5. My parents were by no means able to afford any of our college tuition, though they tried, and they tried greatly. I did pick up a small scholarship for engineering at UTEP, and I did take advantage of that scholarship for the semester or 2 that it had, and then after that, you know, just basically had to just go to work, and sometimes had 2 paying jobs in order to go to school, and so I was on the 8-year program because I had to just go part-time.
Wow.
Part-time school and full-time work.
And what kinds of jobs did you work?
Wow, I did everything. I was one of the interesting jobs I had was I worked for a professor. He was a linguistics professor, and he was paraplegic.
Yeah, remember him.
Dr. Ornstein.
Yeah.
I used to be his assistant, and so I would basically get him up in the morning, bathe him, and feed him, and then get him to work, transport him, and yeah, so that was quite an experience. I learned a lot by doing that. I learned a lot about caring for individuals and understanding their, you know, their needs and, you know, physical limitations and stuff, and dealing with someone with disabilities. You know, yeah. But I did a whole lot of things. I used to computer program for companies. Construction companies. I would write, back then, computer PCs were in their infancy, and companies were just purchasing them and getting to understand that environment. And so I would come in and I would write spreadsheets for different organizations. I worked for John T. Hansen at John T. Hansen Construction. In fact, he's one of my mentors, and learned a lot from that individual. Oh my gosh, learned so much from Mr. Hansen. He was just such a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, and he gave me the opportunity of being his IT person. Back then, they didn't call him IT person; that was their computer guy. But IT wasn't even a concept back then. But and then Weiler Industrial Works with Mr. Berry.
Yeah.
Mr. Paul Berry was also a big mentor of mine. I miss him so much.
Wow.
And wrote computer programs for them, and their accounting systems and their inventory systems and stuff.
So
like
you're
that.
learning on the job.
I learning on the job, and then I would go to class at UTEP, and you know, and apply what I learned on the job into with my schooling and the subjects that I was taking at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I understand the 8-year plan. I took a 10-year plan.
Oh, okay.
But we finished,
good.
right?
Yes. Yeah,
So you come out of college.
Yes.
And now what?
So I come out of college and then quickly realized couldn't find a job. It was tough. So I picked up a couple of part-time jobs. I was a night instructor at a school called Computer Career Center, and I was also a counter sales person for a company back then called Computer. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name of it right now. But it was a computer store, Computer Solutions, on Viscount. And with Mr. Ross Swall. And so Lee Chase was the owner of Computer Career Center back then. Learned a lot from her. And so I started off these part-time jobs, but evolved into a full-time job with Computer Career Center. I was their night director. And then came along Gail Darling and her organization, and met with her and thought, wow, what a dynamic person. I'd like to work for her. And so I did. And I became her IT person, her network systems administrator. And back then she had organizations not only here in El Paso, but in Dallas and also in Fort Worth.
She was an employee leasing company.
It was an employee leasing company, yes. They also did professional leasing with consultants. It was their headhunting organization, if you would. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so in that process, when did you marry?
Well, you know what? I married late in life. I've been married twice. I was married briefly back in right before I started the company. And then I'm married to my wife now, Lourdes, and back in 2000.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you have children?
I inherited a whole family when I got married. I've got my son Jimmy, my daughter Katie, my family. There's just no other way to say it. My kids, my babies. Yeah.
Wow. So after this Africa experience,
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria, you come back with a determination. Do you mind talking a little bit more about that determination, because it seemed to really affect you in a way?
It was a drive. It was you have to do something to make a difference, not only to benefit yourself, but benefit others. I can't tell you. Sometimes I tear up by thinking about it, but I can't tell you just what an experience it was to take a child and writing on the ground and having them understand the concept of addition and subtraction. And I realized, wow, that's powerful. I have something I have to share. I have something I have to do with my life. I can't do it with a very comfortable and cush position, which I had, because I was being paid very well, and it was a good position I had going to Africa. But wow, I had to do something, and so I did. And so I did. I started teaching, which I love, and to this day, that's what I love to do. I love to teach. I love to share my knowledge, my experience, and help others excel. And in my times of teaching, because I ended up having a proprietary school that was actually nationally accredited. And it was wonderful to see people that would come in. One story, a gentleman came in crying because he had lost his, back then minimum wage was, I think it was $6.25 an hour. And he was torn to pieces because he didn't know how he was going to go home and explain to his wife that he had lost his job. And we took that individual and we put him through our training program. And within 12 months, he had a, back then, $25,000 a year job waiting for him. And now he is just, he has skyrocketed. I don't know how much he's making now, but he's a manager of IT services for City of El Paso and some stuff like that.
Wow.
So and there are a lot of success stories like that we have.
But you came back with a drive to teach. Was it in your mind to start a business?
I felt that the conduit that I wanted to create, I had to create it. And it wasn't out there available. And so I think the drive of creating a business was in order to fit that conduit, in order to fit that need. And that's why I started that business. That's why I started Computer Labs.
So the business was the channel.
The business to me was the channel. The business at the time was the means in order to achieve the goal.
And that was?
To teach, to go out and to share my knowledge. And to go out and not only that, but to stretch myself and learn more myself, and to go out and take what knowledge I had, which back then, again, computers were at their infancy, and I had a lot of knowledge that I had acquired because from age 11 on, it never stopped. I just always learned about computers, and so back then I was on the cutting edge, and I just wanted to tell everybody, and I wanted to use my talent to go out there and get kids excited, and young kids, and that's what we did. I mean, we would have kids 18 years old that dropped out of high school with no direction, and then they come out and they excel. They take charge of their lives, and then I've had some come back and say thank you. Yeah.
But you found something spoke to you very into your deep being about you talked about the relation between poverty and...
Well, Nigeria, Africa is actually split into two sections. Southern Nigeria is very Christian, and northern Nigeria was very Muslim. And I was in the most part, I was in the northern part of Nigeria, in Kano, Kaduna, Maiduguri, all northern parts. And back then, the Muslim extremism was just starting to emerge, and I had experiences with Sunni Muslims, and there were times when I didn't think we were going to come out alive. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can go on and there'd be a whole new segment with just that. But long story short, it was the greatest adventure of my life, and that's the only way I could say it. It was an adventure. And again, I saw humanity at its best, and I saw humanity at its worst. We would be in grass huts, literally out in the middle of the. You have the Sahara Desert that's actually encroaching upon northern Africa, and we were in that desert area, and their temperatures would get to 125 degrees sometime. Yeah, oh my goodness, that was a pretty hot place. But out in the middle of this desert would be these grass hut outcroppings, and the most beautiful people. That they had very little, but they would give you all that they had, and they would treat you like kings and queens. And oh my gosh, I mean, they were just loving, giving people, and they had absolutely nothing. And then unfortunately, we saw the other side where people were treated as commodities, and people were not viewed as human. And unfortunately, and I saw that side of it. The kids that I mentioned earlier, they actually risked their lives to be learned, to be taught. And so in the middle of the night, they'd have to go through these checkpoints, and some of them, young girls would get raped. Young boys would get beaten, some of them beaten to death. And you're not talking 18, 16, you're talking kids 9, 10, young, bringing their brother and sister, in hand with them just so that they can sit by candlelight in dark covered rooms just so that they could learn.
Because you were teaching them.
Well, yeah, me, I was just part of this big team of people that were risking their lives to go out there, and I joined them.
But you came back from that experience with a motivation and to teach.
Yes.
And now you're already a college graduate. You're already a computer programmer.
Yes, sir.
You grew up as a computer geek or nerd or whatever they call it, right?
Yeah, that's what they call it.
As a kid.
Yes, sir.
You played with those machines.
Yes, sir.
So you know the technology, and you come back with a drive now to teach.
Right.
So how do you find your way now?
Oh, taking technology and utilizing technology in order to excite and provide resources that weren't currently available. One of my early projects, as we probably mentioned in the previous time that you and I had spoke, but we were part of the program to help all the Levi Strauss workers that had been laid off. Early on, a lot of schools, from what my understanding from the people from Levi Strauss that came and ultimately talked to me, they went from school to school and asked that a GED program and basic skills program be provided in Spanish. And a lot of schools rejected it and saying, nope, don't want to touch that, nope, can't have it. And then they came to me, and I said yes.
Did you already have a proprietary school?
You know what? At that point, we had the proprietary school in its infancy. It had just started, and I already had a small working model of this ESL GED program that we had implemented at one of the community centers both in Sacred Heart Church and Armijo Center. And it was successful. It was working out. And so they came to me and said, well, can you do this for us? And I said, well, sure, yes, I can do it. I didn't realize at the time the scale that it was going to be. We actually taught within a year's time probably over 1,200 people ESL, GED, and basic skills training.
Wow.
And that was
so
quite
ESL being
undertaking.
English as a second language, so
yes,
really literacy.
Yes, completely.
So here you are, trying to find this satisfaction for this drive you have to teach.
Right.
But you don't fit into normal things out there that are available. You had to create your own.
I had to create them, and I used my business as a mechanism in order to create them, so that I can keep that technological component and incorporate it into.
But did you know business, or was this just something?
Well, no. You know what? I had a lot of good business mentors going in. Mr. Ed Soto from Miracle Delivery back then was not only he was a family friend, but probably one of the most tremendous business mentors I had in starting this organization, and backing me with a lot of tremendous knowledge in finance.
What kinds of questions did you have at the beginning? I mean, you have this drive, and you have I guess a frustration because you don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how did the thing about business come up? You were talking to your friends about it, and how did the idea of business come?
The idea of business itself came about because I knew I couldn't work for anybody else with the fire I had and the drive. I knew that if I wanted to do what I wanted to do, I had to do it on my own, and I had to create my business in order to do that.
So you had a fire.
I had a tremendous fire.
But
I still do.
But you saw a need too.
I saw, yes, I saw a need that created that fire in me.
What was that need?
That need was to create a level playing field of knowledge for everybody, so that everybody can have the opportunity to learn, so that they don't have to sneak and
So you go start a business because you want to change the world.
Well, yeah, naively, yes, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's that's the bottom line, and I'm just a nobody, a kid from El Paso, but I had to try. I had to try because I saw what the other side of the world could be. If no one cares and no one doesn't want to do anything, that's going to be the result. Is you're going to have single-mindedness that is going to determine who's human, who's not.
So here you are carrying with a big drive to change the world, and you start a business, but you're fortunate. You have some advisors, some people around you that tell you, go do it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I mentioned before, Ed Soto actually partnered up with me and was in the creation of our corporation, Computer Labs Incorporated, and just a very strong influence. And I mentioned Mr. Hansen as well, and Mr. Paul Berry.
People you'd worked for before.
People that I'd worked for before. We talked a little bit about Cesar Viramontes, and he what a spiritual leader he's been for me, as well as a business mentor, and Jesse Alvarez, and Mr. Joe Rosales, and
so you surround yourself with business people.
You have to. In order to have a successful businesses, you got to realize one thing: you don't know it all. And you got to go out there and you got to find people who have already gone through it and have figured it out, so that you can, you don't have to have as large a knocks as they had.
So here you are, you get a contract to teach Levi Strauss people who are losing their jobs,
yes,
new skills in English literacy and GED to get them to where they can find another job. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden this thing grows and becomes a very big project. Well, that's a huge strain on a starting business. Oh,
absolutely, and but that's why I had Ed Soto. That really, he backed financially, and man, without that powerful insight and support in the business, I wouldn't have done it. Annette Morales was the Levi Strauss representative that had come down, and she took a risk. Because she had to go back and say, hey, well, there's this little company, this little, listen, they don't have a great track record, they just started out, but look what they could do. And the way I won her over is, I actually put her in one of my programs. I said, look, we're going to talk to people around the world that are speaking English, that are just learning English, and they're going to be from United Kingdom, they're going to be, well, I guess they speak English there, but, from like Germany, some France, China, what have you, because back then the internet, you communicated with these chats, these internet chats services. And so I put a microphone on her, and this lady pops up from Germany, and she's struggling with her English. She's, hello, I'm so-and-so, and so nice to meet you. And she's on the computer, and Annette's talking back to her. And then she realized right then the power of, hey, this internet's a good tool to not only teach people, but bring people together and have this whole worldwide learning community take place.
So you married your technology expertise
Absolutely, yeah.
with the need that the community had to train
You know,
people.
I took the gift that the Lord gave me, and somehow or another, I ran with it.
Wow. So now this program grows, and you teach. How many were you able to teach in a couple of years?
You know what? Yeah, I had my proprietary school for a little over 12 years. And, you know, the success story was just phenomenal. Like I mentioned before, I had 4 campuses. I had 2 here in El Paso. I had 1 in Fabens and 1 in Las Cruces. And quite a phenomenal amount of success.
Well, proprietary schools have a lot of requirements.
Yes, they do.
You had to pass state inspections.
Oh, we were getting audited 6 times a year.
Wow.
6 times a year. And the financial burden on a proprietary school is tough. And we weren't accepting or taking financial aid at the time. And actually, we never did. I wanted to price our program so that it was affordable. Not to say anything about proprietary schools, because they all have their challenges, but you do have some that I mean, just recently made national headlines where, you know, they went bankrupt and all these student loans were left unpaid, and all these students were left out. But so that was not my approach. I wanted it to make it affordable. I wanted it to be.
Was it?
Accessible.
Were you the first Hispanic in proprietary?
You know what? I was told that I was one of the first Hispanic owners of a proprietary school. How true that is, I don't know. But
what year?
Well, that would have been back in 1991, 1992.
Wow.
So yeah, and to be the full controlling owner of a proprietary school. I know that there were some that had, you know, minor interest or what have you that I was aware of at the time, and I was told that by one of the state agency employees that monitored proprietary schools at the time.
So what was the next iteration of computer labs? And was that was the name now?
Well, that I still keep the name Computer Labs for the name of the corporation of the business itself. But like I said, we do other things now with testing and training. Back in 2001, when 9/11 hit, proprietary schools took a big hit, and I was one of those that couldn't exist with the current climate, because my pricing wasn't high enough and my funding wasn't, you know, at the point where I could survive that big storm. Because back when 9/11 hit, all government funding just completely dried up and whatnot. I also at the same time was doing a lot of training with military. So I had all my eggs in too few baskets, if you will. And so I had to downsize. I sold off part of my school to an existing proprietary school here in town. And then I focused. I changed to where I was profitable most, and that was government training and basically corporate training. And then opened up the testing center. And back then I purchased a building, the 23,000 square foot building, and had pretty much 80% of it occupied with the school. And then 9/11 hit, and I pretty much had to, you know, start downsizing, and then I became in the lease management business. Oh. So now I lease 11 tenants, and they're wonderful tenants, and I'm actually finding it very rewarding becoming a building manager and lease management.
So you have this drive to change the world, to teach.
Mm-hmm.
You have this tremendous skill of computer understanding and programming, and you merge that into business. You have some advisors, you have some financial support to build, and then 9/11 hits, and so you make that changes the world on you.
Yeah.
So how do you so is this building a business filling that drive that you had back then?
Yeah, in regards, it still is, absolutely. I still am involved in the community. Just recently, in collaboration with students from El Dorado High School, they come in on Saturdays. I have all these computer systems that either I donate or have other businesses donate to homeless shelters around town and shut-ins. That are in need of a way of communicating with grandkids and whatnot. And so the kids from El Dorado High School will come in, they'll refurbish these computer systems, I'll oversee them, show them how to do it, and I also have some of my employees helping out with that as well, and other organizations. And we get those computer systems up and running, and then we take them to the shelters, and the kids will install them and get them on the internet and get basic skills and GED services going on them and good stuff like that. So I'm still doing that. I'm not focusing it as a profit center, if you will, on that, but I do that because that's my passion. That's what I love.
So how important is passion in business?
If you don't have passion, you shouldn't be in business. That's how important it is. That's how important it is. If there's not passion in marriage, you shouldn't get married. It's the same thing with business. If there's no passion in business, you shouldn't be in business. And that's the bottom line.
Does that help you make decisions?
Making decisions has a lot to do with why you're in business to begin with. Absolutely, yeah. So my passion certainly is a big part of it. I'm really big on doing what I say and say what I do. And instill that from my parents and every business mentor that I've ever come across. They've all said, listen, if you can't be honest, you really are not going to be in business very long.
And your wife works with you?
Yes, she does. Lourdes works with me. She runs the testing center, and she has taken that testing center from one or two testing companies, and now we're up to 25 testing companies that we proctor for. So we actually represent 25 testing organizations, and she's top notch. In fact, our reputation is we're probably the best testing center in El Paso, and it's all due to her tenacity. Wow. And you know what? And she's my sounding board now. I love working together with her. Of course, we have separate offices because hey, we need them, at times. But you know what? She's not only the love of my life. She's my business partner.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Your shirt has Zap My Virus.
Yes. Well, that's another service that we provide. ZapMyVirus.com is a website that we created a few years back. That the whole premise was to help people clean their computer system with viruses remotely. Oddly enough, most of my customers come from the East Coast. I have very few customers in El Paso that I provide this service for. 85% of them are all East Coast customers, and I get calls all hours of the night, and we have a 1-800 number. Wow. So, and sure, yeah, and it's taken off pretty well.
Is that something you developed?
That's something I developed probably about 3-4 years ago.
And how does that work?
Well, we advertise basically through social media and free services, if you will, like Craigslist and whatnot, on the East Coast, but a lot of it's come from word of mouth. We helped one elderly person in the East Coast, and all of a sudden we get 5 more calls and 10, and they've evolved that way. So we don't heavily advertise that service, but they call us. Oh my, I can't get my computer to boot up. I can't do this, can't do that, and then we talk them through some steps and get them on the internet, and then we connect into their computer system remotely, and we take over from there. We clean up their computer system, fix it, and they're good as new.
And the charges for that are affordable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I got a quick story about that.
Please.
I had an individual call me once, and he said, "Listen, I can't get my computer system up. It's got all my pictures of every painting I've ever drawn, and I'm having eye surgery tomorrow, and it's a 50-50 chance that I'm going to keep my eyesight. I need to see my pictures." And so we got it. We got it working. I remoted in, and oh gosh, that probably had to be about 4 or 5 hour process. But wow, what a trigger that this if we didn't get this poor individual, he ended up keeping his eyesight. The surgery was a success, and he kept his eyesight. But someone's facing that situation. He's in Florida. And I'm here in El Paso, and he's reaching out to me saying, "You're my only hope."
Wow.
So that's one of my interesting stories from the Zap My Virus.
So building a business has been a satisfying road for you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what kind of advice do you have for somebody?
Love what you do first. I mean, if you're going to be in business, have the passion. Have that passion. And then, you know what? Do what you say and say what you do. No one ever wants to do business with a liar. Okay? And it's really important to keep to that honesty and tough. And we're all human, and sometimes it's hard to say yes or hard to say no. But I'd rather say no to a customer. I can't do this. I'm sorry. It's just out of my scope. But I'm going to find somebody for you to help you. And that's tough for most business people to do. But you always got to keep that customer first. You always got to keep them in mind when you're coming to those decisions. Every business owner I know that has cut corners and try to circumvent and go around the system, all of them are out of business. All of them. Not one of them survived.
So is that a secret?
I think that's more telling to life in general. Whether it's a business, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a family, integrity is what keeps everything together.
And when you hire people, that's a culture you...
if I can't, I would rather hire personality and train the techniques and understand that, man, I'm getting a solid person that, is just going to treat those customers great. And they may not be the greatest programmer or the greatest web page designer or the greatest, virus eradicator or educator, but I can get them there. Okay, with my passion, I know I can get them excited enough to learn what they need to know. Wow. But they have to be that solid person to begin with.
Well, you've certainly shared with us the story of Computer Labs. And there is a story.
I guess so. I didn't know there would be, but
it's a valuable story, and it revolves around you and your experience and what you want to say to the world through this experience. And I appreciate Ruben, your sharing your story with us, because I think it's valuable to hear. It's a valuable contribution in our community, and you're still very involved in the community, and you believe in that contribution to the community. So I trust that our viewers have enjoyed the story. I certainly have. And we're certainly fortunate that you've been willing to share your story. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
The pleasure was all mine.
Well,
Thank
it's been
you.
a real delight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and have a good day.